Hey guys, BJ the Brave here, back with another deck guide for you. And today I'm actually going to be returning to an old favourite of mine. I know I've already stated a few times on this channel what my favourite deck is, but this has got to be like in the top 3 favourite decks. It's certainly a deck that I think has really stood the test of the time. So much so that when one of my best friends, he was actually one of the ushers at my wedding, when he wanted to get into the game, and asked me which faction should he start with. He's probably just going to focus on one faction. I basically steered him to this deck, and the person who that was turned out to be is actually Alski. And if you look at where he is this season, you can see he's actually currently ranked 2. He's been ranked 1 this season a few times, and he's currently ranked 2. So this is the deck that he is running. And you know, if you wanted any proof that, I mean, I'm in the sort of top 30 with it too, and it's a very powerful deck. In my opinion, it's the best deck in the game. Currently, overall, my opinion is this is the best deck in the game. It's got a very high skill cap, so you have to learn to play it well to really achieve that power spike. And there's certainly other powerful decks that you can play less well and do better with than this, if that makes sense. But I think if you just put this in the hands of the best player who really knows what he's doing with it, I think it's the most powerful deck in the game. So what we're going to do is just talk to you a little bit about what the focus of this deck is and its win cons. We're going to touch on, like, some of its strengths and weaknesses. We're going to talk about the card choices in this particular version of the deck. And some alternative cards too, because I'm aware that we've got new people joining the game all the time, and not everybody's got all the legendaries and things like that. So we'll definitely touch on some alternative cards that are really powerful. The good thing about Orkz is there's a lot of powerful cards. So literally every single card in this deck has been really thought about, and there are alternatives that you can run, but this is like quite optimized at the minute. We're going to talk a little bit about the defense stratagems and the offense as well, where that's relevant, and then we'll get into like how to mulligan effectively and some of the matchups. Okay, so what's the focus of this deck? So the first thing I would say is this is really, I think I talk about it as Grukk Control. You've heard me call it Grukk Control, Ripper Control. I called it Rock Hard when I originally made this deck guide months ago, because that was referring, actually, there's a bit of Orc reference there, but it was actually referring to how difficult it was to get right. The thing I love about this deck is that there's so many decision trees and ways that you can go with it. And there's different versions. There's a burner spanner version that's been, where I've tested before. You can go back and see my old videos on this, and you'll see that, my old control stuff. But I think this version right now is the best in the current meta. And one of the I'll talk specifically about the win cons, but it really can act like a Swiss Army knife. So we generally play it starting the game out as a control deck, but it can very quickly switch, and it's a deck that keeps you thinking and assessing the board all the time, and every turn asking yourself, am I the beatdown now? Has that switch from control to beatdown? If you don't know what I'm talking about, go and watch my Warpforge fundamentals video where I talk specifically about being the beatdown. I also have done a good one on aggro, mid-range and control, so I recommend going and checking those out on my YouTube. But back to Rockhard version 3, this is a Swiss Army knife of a deck, and you have to know when to turn the up the tempo and become the aggro deck. And but generally speaking, we start out as the control deck. I would say that is true against most players. I was going to say, with maybe the exception of Imatech, but even honestly, depending on your hand, sometimes the first few turns I'll play it as the control. But anyway, what are the win cons then? So first of all, this deck can provide 3 very powerful waves of tempo. Okay, and they come from using the green hordes. You've got two of those, so we can create 2 kind of hordes of orcs on the board. We'll talk more about those combos in a minute. And we've also got the rock invasion. So traditionally they were the 3 waves, but the deck has also got such good flanking potential and removal potential when you think about comboing things like the veteran Stormboy. So for example, on turn 7 you can play, sorry, in turn 10 you can play a Stormboy, and then you can veteran Stormboy, and then you can play 2 normal Stormboys. But on turn 7, if you play the green horde, then you can play the veteran Stormboy discounted, and then you can play all of the Stormboys because they're 0, along with Makari and any Slugger Boys that you happen to have as well, because they'll be down to 0 too. So there's many combos. Another combo is turn 5. On turn 5 you can play the Gretchen mob and Ada's Nails, giving you 3 4 health Vanguard units, is really cool. Or you can play on turn 5 the Orc Knob. If you've played Green Horde, you can play the Orc Knob and then all of your 2-drops for free. All gaining flank from the Orc Knob. So there's some really good combos there. And again, you can kind of just turn 5, you can Green Horde, play out your board, your Slugger Boys, Storm Boys, and then stick Ada's Nails on them as well to make them more resilient to things like AoE. That's particularly good against Eldari, where they want to hit you with the Eldritch Storm. So lots and lots of combos in this deck, which is one of the things that I absolutely love. But generally what it does is it draws it early, and then it controls the board, and then it overtakes the board, and then you have these big waves of tempo, and then that's kind of like how you win. But it doesn't stop there, guys, because remember what I said, this is the best deck in the game. So there's all sorts of other win cons that are mixed into here. We run 2 proper killies. Same old Orc story, boys. Combine that with Makari, you're doing 10 damage. You're doing 10 damage from hand with 1 proper killie. You know, we've got the Warbikers. Again, one of the unspoken strengths of Grukk is that when he uses the Red War, which is his Warlord talent, not only does it draw a card from your deck, not only is it a guaranteed troop and not a stratagem, which it makes a big difference, by the way, but it also gives them +1 attack. And you know, that's why we often throw away our Warbikers, because if we pull them with the Red Horde, they come out at 5. With Makari, that makes them 6. So the finishing ability and the reach, and this is why the deck has potential to very quickly switch from being the control player into an aggro beatdown deck, because it has those kind of tools. So supporting the control, we do run the Iron Gob. Don't skimp on these guys. I've tried. I don't recommend it. This is important. It's a key part of playing this deck. This deck starts slow. It often draws in the early turns, and you will need some heal, and not only heal but some concussive as well. Like that actually slows down your enemy Warlord, and that's really important. So we do run the 2 Iron Gobs. Of course, as a control deck, we have the Mucking About standard, right? We have the 2 Will of Gorks standard, right? I mean, even better when you're walking into a Tyrannid meta, which we might be at the minute, just more from a popularity point of view, just because the expansions come out as Tyranids. So you know, it just makes this deck even better at the minute. We do run 1 Scorcher Assault. I've run 2 of them. I've run a Pyrotechnics. You can get away with any of those, any combo of those 3. Right now, for me, one of them feels like it's enough, just because, as I say, we've got so much control already that I kind of don't feel the need for that. Really important in this deck are the Snazwagons. They work particularly well. And we also have flanking Veteran Storm Boys, which of course I think they're better than the Squig Buggy. The Squig Buggy works better in a kind of like aggro Orc deck, right? Because you're guaranteeing doing extra damage to enemy face because the Squig blows up. Whereas the Vet Storm Boy just trades better, I think, with enemy flyers. Most enemy flyers don't have melee attack. So the fact that this guy is flying and has melee attack, he just trades really nicely against enemy flyers. And of course he has the synergy with the little Storm Boys, so that they gain flank if he's on the board. So fantastic. Ardshell Grukk, I mean, obviously in the mirror match he's susceptible to the hard removal, but you know, he's fantastic against Eldari. He's pretty good against Tyranids. Marines obviously can take him out, but it costs them 5 energy, so it's not too much of a tempo loss. But you know, some games he's not amazing, but other games he can win you games. You know, if this guy lands and the opponent hasn't got an answer for it, it's pretty much game over. And we already talked about the Will of Gorks and the Rock Invasion. So the real strengths of this deck, guys, is that, God, there's so many strengths. It's got amazing finishers. It's got auto card draw every turn. It's the fact that you can basically always draw the tools. It's got so many tools. It's got the tools to deal with anything in the game, and the hero power, the Warlord talent, helps you to accumulate those tools. So the deck is just so strong because of that. Other strengths, as I say, lots of good flanking, lots of hard removal, lots of kind of opportunity to just flood the board with sudden bursts of tempo, which very few factions can do that, right? What Rock Invasion can do, what a Green Horde can do, there's very few other factions or decks that can do that. So this deck for me just has it all. It has heal, it has beatdown, it has removal. It's such a strength. Now, what are the weaknesses? Well, they're smaller weaknesses, but obviously one weakness is, like for example, a tough matchup is the Uriel aggro, and the reason for that is, and don't get me wrong, that's very winnable if you understand the matchup and you play correctly. But one of the weaknesses is, yeah, getting beaten down too early. Like I said, if you play this deck well, you should be drawing in your first couple of turns, and that can put you behind if your opponent's going pedal to the metal on the tempo. You can find yourself behind, and you might just find yourself in a position where you just can't heal and recover the board quickly. So that's a small weakness of the deck. The other weakness is just consistency. Like, again, every time I talk about a weakness to this deck, I don't think, yeah, but there's a strength that overcomes that, right? And Grukk himself is that strength. The fact that he can just draw into tools, it's so powerful, guys. And he's not just drawing a card, he's drawing a troop. So you kind of know what you've got. You've also got Prophet of War, which I didn't talk about earlier. That chooses a stratagem. So you've got this pulling the stratagem that you need when you need it, Swiss Army knife style. And then you've got Grukk pulling the troops so that you get the combos with the Green Horde or with the Veteran Stormboy, or you pull your flankers that you need. But it can be occasionally that you just need one or two of the tools that are in your deck and you just don't have them in hand. That will happen. Like if you play 100 games on ladder, then that you're going to have a few games where that happens. So there's a bit of a weakness that it can be a little bit inconsistent. But I think if you learn to play it well, I actually think you can minimize that weakness a little bit. Some of the alternative cards that you can play, like if you don't have Rock Invasion, it's not the end of the world. Actually, it's becoming fewer and fewer games where the Rock Invasion is the win con that wins you the game, especially now that we've added in things like the proper killers and stuff. So it doesn't matter if you don't have the Rock Invasion. I would say that Makari is the most important legendary. That's the first one I craft, and Orc Nob is probably second. I think in terms of alternatives, you can run the Grot. The Grot's a really good card in this deck. I'd like to fit one back in if I could, but I just can't at the minute. But it's really good, and the main reason it's really good is that when Grukk pulls a Grot, so you always throw it away in your mulligan, it gets 2 attack. So obviously when you use the 3, then you're actually getting 6 attack for 3 energy, which is really good. So I think Grot is a really sound and solid replacement in here. I also think you could run a Bomb Squig if you want. It's not my cup of tea, but it would work fine as part of your control thing. The Grot tanks work fine as well. Nice early game. They compete well for that tempo, like again minimizing that weakness a little bit. What you will notice though in this version of the deck is I don't have anything that's unstable. There's no unstable in this deck, and that helps with one of the weaknesses, which is Grukk's vulnerability, his health. So by not taking too much damage from unstable, that's definitely a thing. You can run Pyromaniacs if you've got it. It works very well. I wouldn't run things like Shooter Boys in this. It's not. That's much more suited to an aggro. You can run the Spanner. So one of the things about the Spanner though is you either just run one of them and try and get it to combo with, like, you know, your few vehicles. You don't have lots of vehicles in this deck. We don't run the Squig Buggies, but you do have the War Bikers. You do have the Snaz Wagons. So, you know, you can definitely run one Spanner. I would suggest though that if you're going to do that, you might go down more of an actual package and replace sort of 4 or 5 cars and put in like a Burner Boys maybe, and maybe even if you've got him, like Mech Boy Gazmech as well. What else can you run in this deck? You can get away with one Unbridled Carnage, especially if you're going to put a Grot back in. I think that's pretty good. And obviously the Squig Buggy. You know, if you really want to, I've kind of come away from it. I know Alskiers as well, but of course it's a good card, and of course that would fit very nicely into your control strategy if you're looking for kind of alternatives. What else could you play? Potentially you could play a Death Dread as well. So there's plenty of cards, and we already talked about having additional Scorchers. So there's definitely plenty of options there if you're looking for some swapsies. Now in terms of the stratagem, what I would suggest is that in this deck you want to take, if you've got the level 20 on the Forge, you want to take the one that gives you +2 to the -2 from the next vehicle cost. One of the things that's really great about this is you can play it like turn 1. Sometimes you find with Grukk that your hand ends up filling up, especially if you've got Makari, because obviously when he dies he jumps back into your hand. So you can play the extractor rig straight away and it just says your next vehicle. So you can play that 3 turns later if you want, right? So this helps from a kind of, you know, something like Disruption Pool in Tyranids. You can't do that because it says this turn. So it's just a little trick that people are always aware of, and it's important when you're doing Grukk because, as I say, hand management's important. But this is really cool. If we're going second, I often look for this plus a Snazwagon, so that on turn 3 you've got a really solid removal. You can pretty much remove any unit in the game by turn 3 with a Snazwagon, right? Discounting it from 5 to 3. That's a really good combo. So I tend to look for that. In terms of the offense, you want to be against the against Orkz. I will often use Night Attack because there's nothing in our Orc deck that needs to specifically target our opponent, whereas they might run things like the Squig thingy and you know, so it's worth doing that. Against the Eldar, I would actually avoid, if I were you, I would avoid using the one that makes it cheaper, the one that gives you +1 energy, Infinity Circuit, that's it. Yeah, I'd avoid this, guys. I'd avoid this because on the first turn, you want to be basically using Grukk's power. On the second turn, you want to be using it again, hopefully with Makari. But really, those first 2 turns allow you to do that. So what's the point in starting on 3 energy when you only want to spend 2? And you're just giving him an opportunity to play like a Scorpion or a Spider or something. So I would avoid using that if I were you. Yeah, and that's the main thing you kind of need to be aware of in the offense and defense stratagems. Okay, so in terms of like the mulligan and matchups, then, as I say, so what I'll often do is I will often look for, if we're going second and we've got that stratagem that I just said, I will definitely look for a Snazwagon and keep one. Outside of that, we really want to be looking quite hard for our Green Horde early game. And the reason for that is if we can get that in hand, obviously we can use our hero power the first 2 turns, as I said, and that will help us draw into our Slugger Boy and Storm Boys. I would say that if we have Prophet of the War, it's worth considering keeping because, you know, again, that is a proxy for potentially the Green Horde. So I often will keep that. It just depends on the matchup, but I often will keep that. And then beyond that, you're looking for Makari. Makari is always a keep for me. I never throw this guy away. I have a theory that I'd love to see the stats of Orkz, all the games that have been played with Orkz. I love Evergirl to show us the stats of what the win rate is when the Orc player has Makari in the opening hand versus what it is when they don't. Because I just feel like I never lose when I have Makari in the opening hand. It's so insane. And even in like that tough matchup of the Uriel aggro, if I've got Makari in hand, I'll basically play and I'll race him basically. Because, you know, it depends what you've got in your hand, but if you've got your proper killers and your warbikers, you can actually out aggro them and it becomes ridiculous. So definitely we want to keep Makari. Other than that, guys, you really want to mulligan pretty hard, generally speaking, for that Green Horde. And don't be scared to throw away boys. Like, one of the things I used to do is think, oh, keep the boys. Yes, if I've got a Green Horde, I might keep the boys, but if I haven't, I'd get rid of them every time, because it's actually better to have the Green Horde and then draw these. Remember, you get the +1 attack, so if your Slugger Boy comes out as a 3/2, the tied version of the Slugger Boy, the second one, will also get that buff too. Same with the Grots, same with the Storm Boys. Yeah, so if he's +1, +4, the second one will be 4 as well from the tide. So you really want to kind of make use of Makari's ability there, and always be mindful of, you know, when you look at your hand, was it drawn or did it come from Grukk? If it came from Grukk, that +1 can make a big difference. You know, veteran Storm Boys being 7 attack, with Makari that's 8 attack. These are the little details you need to be kind of conscious of when you're managing your hand, for sure. So most generally, most of the matchups, what we're looking to do is just control the board. Against Eldar, we do struggle a little bit to kind of remove the stones, and what I kind of found is that's okay, which is it's really rare that I would say that. Like, obviously if you can remove stones, you should, but I think this is one deck that can just beat Eldar, even giving them the stones. Like, it's more important to just remove the units with this deck, which you can absolutely do, and you will out attrition them big time with Grukk, as long as you keep your health healthy. Keep your health healthy. Does that make sense? Then you can beat the Eldar. And I said the really tough one is the Uriel, but with that one it's all about kind of controlling the board but keeping up on tempo, being conscious of what you've got in your hand when it's time to switch, when you've got that potential kill in sight with like proper killies and warbikers. Can you use Iron Gob to snatch the lead in a tempo race, for example? You know, really thinking about no mucking about as well, like timing that, not wasting it on a guard unless it really gives you an advantage, but tending to wait for Calcius or something that's a bit harder to remove. You know, again, when they play the stun guy, which they'll try to do to stun Grukk's face, the 5-drop, that's where things like this, you know, they've only got 2 range attacks, so that's where the Snazwagons do work. Against Necrons, you really want to be thinking about obviously mindful of their Tomb World, and that's where I always try to hold a Will of Gort back to be able to just remove a Tomb World. Not many Necron players play like the Resorb, but you know, a good counter to that would be to have the Resorb, but then they've got to have both of those in hand, and it becomes a bit theoretical. It doesn't often work out in practice. But this used to actually struggle with control Necrons, but I'm starting to find that this is favoured against it, and which is absolutely bonkers to me. But it really is that good of a deck. So yeah, generally speaking, you want to be trying to draw in the first couple of turns. I've talked about some of the synergies you're looking for. On turn 4, it's perfectly reasonable to just, if you don't have the Green Horde, for example, it's perfectly reasonable to just play out 2 Slugger Boys or 2 Storm Boys. You know, you can't be too greedy with the deck. You can't just sit back and just like a Legend of Runeterra control deck or something. It doesn't work like that. You can't just sit back and just play nothing until turn 8. You know, so you have to use, you know, it's very Orkish in a way. You just throw the bodies away. You don't care about them. Stick 2 Slugger Boys down. If they get removed, they get removed. It keeps your health up of your Warlord. That's one of the key considerations, is keeping Grukk healthy. Never go face with Grukk until you are the beatdown. Okay, you always want to only use Grukk for removal, or if you're trying to concuss the enemy Warlord on the turn that you play Iron Gob, that's usually acceptable. Okay, so that's the deck, guys. What I want to do now is jump into a few example games, which I think really sort of exemplify this deck in action. And we're going to use the new replay function for that. So let's just have a quick look. Here we go. I have pinned some of these decks, if I can find them. Okay, so the first one we're going to watch is this one. So this is against Shrigma Mail, who at the time was top of ladder. I think he's rank 3 at the minute, and he's, you know, this season he's the best performing Ghaelyn player. So you can see this was the hand that we got. We're not going second, so we don't have the stratagem to get the discount on the Snazwagon, so I'm throwing it away. And we don't have the Green Horde, so I'm actually throwing away that hand completely, and instead we get that. Okay, so we go first. Obviously we just draw a card. I'll kind of like speed this up, fast forward, and we drew Grukk. Then he plays his standard Warlord talent and attacks us, and we're obviously just going to remove that with a range attack, minimizing the damage on Grukk. And I think we're just going to draw yet again, which we do, and we're not doing too great. You know, the hand's a bit clunky, but we've hit our principle, right? We've reduced damage, minimized damage, and we've drawn. Okay, so he plays his Spirit Stone, so he's now up to 3 stones already. And he just drops another body. So now we've got options with Gretchen Mob, Iron Gob, or draw. And we actually take this turn. So notice we took the turn for the Iron Gob. I'm just going to pause it there. So one of the things with the Iron Gob, especially in a matchup like this where it's a tempo match, is that we very much have to like sometimes think about where can we fit it in, and that's why we took that turn there. We could easily have just drawn because we could have said, well, there's no pressure, but we might struggle to find a turn where we can just waste 4 energy on that. So we saw that as a safe turn to do it. We've now got concuss on us, so if he attacks us back, he'll then be concussed the next turn. So I think that was a good opportunity to play that. We also know Eldar have a lot of reactive units, right? So he's probably sitting there with like his Wild Riders and his Shroud Runners and his Banshees, and he's like, well, what am I going to actually target? I've got nothing to target. So it's like playing a little bit more reactive can be good. And so let's see what he then goes for. Okay, so he goes for his Path of Command again. So he's building up this. He's already up to 4 stones. And this time he gets the Warlock down. So he's built himself a knight. This is a really nice turn 4, by the way, for Eldari. So far he's doing great. He's banked lots of stones and he's kind of got that down. So what do we play? So this is a nice turn for that Scorcher, right? That kind of 2 to 4 health body is perfect. Got the removal. We still had 1 energy left, but never mind. Okay, now he drops this guy, and this is where we're looking for No Mucking About. And obviously, No Mucking About is so powerful against these big stealth units that think that they're safe and hiding, and you just go, see ya. And of course, we can draw with our hero power as well. And we get to remove the... So we draw first, and we obviously then use Grukk to just remove the stone. And then he comes down with the Banshee and stuns us, and again rebuilds his board. Attacks face this time, and now we're stunned, so we can't use our Lord this turn, so it's turn 7. So now we're going to go with Orc Nob, which is interesting. I think the idea here is to use the Gretchen, yeah, so we get 3 bodies that can actually attack. And by using the range attack of the Nob, we can kill this for cheap, and then we can kind of clear out the stones as well. It's a good turn, really. It's a good strategy. We can use, these guys don't die. They can attack with their range attack to kill this, and they don't die. And then we can kind of clear out the stones. I mean, it's not that big a deal because he's already got like 1 million stones in the bank. So, but that ultimately was a good way of clearing that board, to be honest. So he uses his Mask as hard removal, which I'm always kind of happy to see as an Orc player, right? Because if that's a proper killy turn that he can't stop, is one way you've got to think about it. Okay, so now it's time for his flankers to come out, but he's using them on little grots, you know, like it's kind of quite a good way, kind of good for us because we're sort of drawing out his removal on things like that rather than the Storm Boys. Speaking of which, this Storm Boy can remove this for free because it's 6 versus 0. This is what we were talking about in the deck guide, right? The melee attack of a flyer is really powerful in this game when you've got that. You know, Wild Riders have 0, even things like Doom size in Necron's really low. So the second Banshee Mask comes down, and this time he's stunned, and this says to me, okay, interesting. It was turn 8. If he had the big Hemlock, it probably would have come down. It didn't. So this is a little bit of a desperation tactic. I'm like, okay, so his hand's not great. That's what you should be reading from that on turn 8. So this is a go wide turn. And we've got a stunned Veteran Storm Boy. So Grukk, definitely get rid of the Defender, because that's got an extra Shuriken damage. We're going to draw, and we're actually just going to drop the big guy. We know Eldar don't have hard removal. It's not amazing here, because these guys are getting Shuriken plus their attack, so they're doing 2 each to this. And he's going to use some of his stones now. This is probably his second best way of removing Grukk. So between that, he can actually mop up at Grukk Ardshell, that is, sorry. Nice, nicely done by him, and still keeping his stones up nice and high to sort of 6, so he's got lots of resources. But you know, his health is getting low now. He's been trying to beat us down. We've healed. He's had lots of units to remove, and his health is already getting low. So he drops the Warp Spider and takes initiative on the board. Now we could think about a Will of Gork here, just because it deals with stealth units. But we're just going to drop the 10 because our health was high enough that we can be behind on initiative and just drop it, and we're not worried about, we don't even need to get the defenders in that sort of situation. Okay, so now it gets really difficult for him. He's got to have a storm. He's got the units. Okay, so he has the storm, of course. The storm comes down. It does a lot of damage, and at the end of it all, he brings down Fireheart, and Fireheart is obviously going to protect his board and help him to further mop up the board. But now, of course, obviously, we're not worried about that at all because it sort of walks into our removal. You know, we've got easy removal for this, whether it's flankers or we've always got Willigork. You always feel safe. I do anyway. I always feel safe with this deck. Meanwhile, look at resources, guys. He's got 2 cards. Our hands is full. We're overdrawing on cards. We've got so many cards. We don't know what to do with them. So we're going to make use of our tide and actually get 2 Snaz Wagons for the price of, well, not the price of 1, but price of 1 in terms of it's only 1 card. And look at all these resources, boys. Look at all these resources we've got in our hand. He's got 2 cards and we've got a full hand. And now we can start to dominate and overtake the board. So the Eldar are very powerful resources, but you know they're not. We've pulled them out. They've been used, and we're just endless. We're just relentless in true Orkish fashion. Okay, so we can use our flankers to remove the blocker, should we want to. Okay, there's Makari, lovely. The second one, because we got one from the rock invasion. So now we can just use our Warlord here. Warlord takes that, we can heal up our unit, and basically he takes out his big unit and we secure the board. And at this point it's like, well, you better have your second storm, otherwise you're kind of done. So he draws, does he get the storm? It doesn't look like it. So he resigns. GG. So I think that's a really good example of a game. Our game plan right from the start of you know, drawing our resources through and staying healthy, just kind of keeping up, playing control until we kind of overtook the board, and I thought that was a really good example of it. So I've got another game that we're going to dive into now. Got one against Abaddon that I wanted to show you actually, and one against the Swarmlord. So here's, oh. So let's have a look at the Abaddon matchup. Now, this was our opening hand. Now, Abaddon obviously is different to Eldar in that he's going to be playing big, beefy units. And again, he can do things like camouflage, but against Orkz, we don't care. Notice that I keep the no mucking about in this matchup because it's really important against Abaddon's big units. So we keep that. Everything else goes, because remember, we're looking for Green Horde, we're looking for Makari. So that all goes, and then we get the Green Horde, and we get Makari. Excellent. Okay, so again, we draw. This time we've obviously got the extractor rig as well, so we just draw a card, nice and simple. He heals, then he plays Host of Chaos, so he's drawing as well, and he attacks us, which he rightfully should. We're the vulnerable one here, so now it's turn 3, and we just simply draw again. And this time we can drop Makari with the draw, which is always nice. That's like the perfect turn 3 for me. If we really wanted to Gretchen mob, we could, but we've got to be careful because obviously he's got ways to counter that as the Chaos player. Things like Traitor's Hate, things like Spawn. Okay. So it's turn 4, and here we do use the Gretchen mob, and this is like a small weakness actually in the decks. Like, we don't want to use our no mucking about, which obviously we could have done there, but there's much bigger fish to fry with that, so we're going to hold on to it. And we don't quite have our flankers yet. You can use a Warbiker there if you've got it, but we don't. So it's really not until we get into the turn 5, turn 6 where our kind of big flankers start to be able to take out the Chaos units. So that's just something to bear in mind. So instead we go with the Gretchen mob, a bit of a defensive play here, just a bit of a kind of like let's survive and chip away. And he senses the weakness and really drops another unit. And look, now we got 2 decent sized bodies and we're kind of a little bit behind on board. So we're getting a little bit nervous. He just clears out, but obviously he knows he's not going to lose his units. And then he goes and drops Pact on the Noise Marine. So I'm actually using proper killie here. So, you know, again, I don't know whether you guys saw that, whether you saw that play, but sometimes it's looking at your hand and it's thinking outside the box. And this is what I mean about this deck. It has so much flexibility. It always has answers. It has tools. Sometimes you just have to think outside the box. In that situation, we used the proper killie. As a control player, we used it for removal, and it was the right thing to do. Now, one of the things I'm conscious of is what's going on with my health now, because obviously I've taken a big lot of damage on there, and that's something that I'll be definitely thinking about, is how do we make sure we maintain health. But generally speaking, Abaddon, we're at this stage of the game, we're fairly happy with this board state. Now, this could be a mucking about. Let's have a look. No, we don't even need to. So notice I went for the Storm Boy over mucking about. If it's a Venom Crawler that gets buffed, this guy can't take it out. So whenever I've got the opportunity to take it out with a flanker as opposed to mucking about, I often will in this sort of matchup. So that's another micro decision to be kind of mindful of. And there we go, boys. There we go. Then comes the Venom Crawler. Now we would have been screwed, right? So, or at least it would have been a lot harder. Look, he plays the Pact, and now we can just go perfect. We've got the mucking about. We're all good to go here. So really knowing that about the matchup is kind of really pivotal. And we had 3 energy left, so we even popped the Green Horde and really decide that now is the turn we want to turn up the tempo. Now, I'm not sure about this play on reflection. We're sitting with double Ada's Nails in our hand. I think a better thing might have been to wait until we could actually combo an Ada Nails with that board, so that board is more resilient against a Spawndom or a Traitor's Hate. And there we go. So we get a little bit punished, I think, here. I actually think that was not the right play on reflection. I think we would have been better just slow playing it, maybe using Prophet of the War, or just drawing again with our Warlord talent of Grukk if we hadn't done so. So yeah, definitely, in my opinion, on a reflection, I think that was a small misplay, to be honest. And now you can see we're punished a little bit because we've got these 2 Ada Nails in hand and we've got absolutely nothing to play them on. So that was bad hand management and decision making on my part for sure. So, you know, well played to Alex. He's managed to Alex, I'm not sure how I pronounce that. But our opponent has, you know, obviously done well with clearing that board. That's something that Chaos do really well. Chaos have good counters to the Green Horde, and so he's done his job well. And now it's our turn 8. So what do we go with? We're going to drop Makari. Is this an Ardshell turn? Protect the 5-1? I think so. So we drop Ardshell, and he comes back with us with a Possessed Marine, and he's just basically focusing, obviously taking out the big legendary Orc, which he, you know, does right. And he even has Execution, so nice. So he can really punish us here, and then obviously take that out with Abaddon himself. So he's still got the initiative on the board with the big 6/5. And look how close the health is. So he gets a good lead on tempo now. He re-establishes himself as the beatdown after our messed up Green Horde, where we should have taken over really and become the beatdown. So now he's back in the game. So we draw. We're looking for, I think we're looking, I'm not sure what we're looking for, but we decide to take the Gretchen mob, and I think this is gonna, okay, so we take the heal and we stun, and this is another great way of using that that card. The Iron Gob has the concussive, and especially because this guy has no range attack, that was a really good way of just getting slowing him down for a turn. And so now he overcommits, right? He senses weakness and he overcommits, and of course we're sitting here with the Will of Gork. Yeah, and he puts even more resources into the board. So probably should have just healed his face there, not to play around Will of Gork. But I suppose he's machine gunning us down, right, and getting some damage. He's committing to that beatdown player. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be a Will of Gork. Yes, it is. And we still have 3 energy. And what we might want to do is start going a bit more aggro now to kind of race a little bit. Yes, we do. So we switch. See that this has got the 5 energy because we drew it with Grukk, which we talked about in the start. And now we're kind of even Steven on 17. But look at the resources, boys. You know, again, he's not as far behind as the Eldar player was, but he's definitely behind where we are. Ooh, and nice. So he's, you know, he's drawn out the Will of Gork from his perspective, and so he starts to go a bit more all in. This is a really powerful turn for him. So let's see what our response to this is. We're going to drop Makari. Okay, slightly strange turn. I'm not sure that was correct, to be honest, but okay. Now he's got a choice. Does he push the damage, or does he use that to remove? Okay, he gets the held right. Now this is really, from the Chaos perspective, I think he's really favoured now. This is like where he's really got the opportunity to press for the win. And then he drops the Bringer as well, so the pressure's really on us. He can remove that with his Warlord, although again in the race that puts his health down. But look at this, boys. Like, we're down to 4 health. Oh, and he's really got us. He's really got us struggling here. But again, we draw not just the Will of God, but we've also got the double Snaz Wagon here. But what do we go with? We go with the defense. We go with a single Snaz Wagon, and I think the idea here is going to be to heal. So Arda's Nails, remember, heals your Warlord as well. And we go double Arda's Nails. Nice. Nice. So we talked about this combo with the Gretchen mob. So we've put up Vanguards, we've healed, and we've removed his main threat at the same time. This guy can't really do a lot to us right here. We know he's just used the AoE, and he plays his second spawner, but it's not going to be enough, guys, because we've got 6 health on these 3 little grots. That's 18 health he's got to get through, and that's how you counter the spawndom, is by making good use of Arda's Nails. Okay, so we're lesson learned, right? Earlier in the game, we went in without Arda's Nails and we got countered hard by Spawndom, whereas this time we went in with the Arda's Nails, and actually that's brought us back into the game, right back into the game. So he's going to go Traitor's Hate, and he's going to take the damage, obviously, to finish that, because he was going to take it anyway, and he's going to probably look to put Vanguard on there, so very well played by him, but of course, we have got that hard removal, and we're drawn so well through our deck. There's only 4 cards left, look at that. So we, of course, by this point in the game, we find our proper killers, we've got our Makari, and that's GG. Kaboom. So another great... So we'll exit there. So another great match there. I think a lot of the lessons that we talked about in... I'm really loving this replay. Let me know in the comments what you think to this, by the way. And please like and subscribe if you haven't already. But I'm really loving this replay because it enables me to really help, like, really further break down my thinking when I'm not having to do it live. So I hope you guys are kind of enjoying this format. Let's do one more. There was one more that I pinned that I thought was a really good example for us to kind of look through. And it was a game against Swarmlord. I'll remember to use the little fast forward to speed things on when we don't need it. So here's what we got. Obviously we get rid of those 2, and we've got the green hold, so we're going to keep that. And so this is what we draw. So of course we do our normal draw. We got the Storm Boy, and we attack with the range attack. Now you can choose not to do that, but I think because my version's a little bit more sped up and it's got potential aggro potential, then I'm often a bit more confident in attacking the range attack of the Swarmlord. But if I didn't have Green Horde, maybe I would consider not doing. Okay, so he plays a really good tempo play on us, and it's very early in the game, so let's see how we respond. Straight into the Green Horde. So we just oppose him with tempo. We can't remove it, but we just oppose him. Obviously we play out all our little 2-drops and say, okay, we'll hit you with a range for 2, and let's see what your 4 health can do against these. And obviously Swarmlord can't do anything to these guys because they're all flyers, so Swarmlord's pretty useless, and this guy's only got 2. I mean, the 2 of them can kill 1 boy, to be fair, but you know, we'd take that trade all day long. He used Tendrils to draw, and this is where we took the opportunity to heal. And I think we're going to smack him in the face with the range damage and stun Swarmlord. So yet again, another turn where Swarmlord can't do anything. The only thing is, we have been using cards, using our energy here, so we haven't been drawing as much. So at the minute, we're a little bit slower on the draw. So we're just going to draw again. And this time we're going to actually play out our Gretchen mob. Now obviously the danger here is that he's got the AoE, and I don't know that that was correct to play around when I had 2 units already on 1 health, because it's just giving him value. And there he goes, his Rapacious Hunger. So I think that was a misplay. We didn't need Vanguards right there, and you're much better playing that kind of play when we've got some healthy units, because he's sort of wasting 5 energy and not clearing the board, whereas there it was a perfect, elegant kind of clear for him. So that was a misplay definitely from me. I don't think I should have done that. Okay, so we draw, and this time we're just going to drop 2 boys. Nothing wrong with that. 4 energy, drop 2 boys, keep some pressure on the board. Give him something to think about. Obviously he can remove them because he's got the big 3 attack, but that's fine. He's still taking damage. Yeah, Grukk's not losing health in that scenario. We're going to use our flanker. We're going to come on and hit this guy. We have to take 4 damage though to kill him. The Crone's a really good unit, so that took a little bit of resource from us there to sort of deal with that. We drew a card, so we keep drawing now. Okay, now we're into, this is where we want the hard removal, but we currently don't have it. Now do we draw? Do we draw? We've got 2 chances. Well, there we go. So the question is, do you use a Will of Gork? And for me, when you're playing Swarmlord, the answer is absolutely. Will of Gork on, you might think, well, it's just 1 unit. It doesn't matter. Broodlord can win. The Broodlord had lethal there. If he had the 4-drop that gives him Bloodlust, that was lethal. So you absolutely Will of Gork in that scenario. And he tries to punish us by playing a really tough unit. So it's really good play for him. And then he stealths it as well. Oh wow. Oh wow. Do we draw any more hard removal? We do! So do we play the second here? Well, we can draw first. So we draw, and I think this time, because we've drawn, see how that gets buffed to 7? So I think here we're going to actually decide, no, we're going to save the Will of Gork. And we're just going to draw that. This guy was stealth, so I don't know, this is a bit risky, we'll see. Okay, so nice, he's established the board. He thinks we don't have the hard removal, but again, this is now where we can Will of Gork. So we've baited him in, he's overcommitted, and now we can just Will of Gork the board. Okay, so that clears the board, and then we actually drop the bite, and this is where we're starting to now switch gears and play catch up a bit, because we've cleared the board and we've got our proper killing and our war bikers. So we're into overtime. He's going to draw. He's trying to keep up on resources. Got 7 energy, and he drops another Carnifex. And the new Neuraloid. Okay. And this allows him to get his commander off. So the health's getting low now on both ends. We've always got to be careful with Swarmlord. Like any sort of board that he gets now, you know, we can potentially lose to a double attack. Once again, he uses flank. He can't use his Warlord to clear here, so he uses flank, and he uses his range attack. So he's still standing with 3 health, and he gets some heal here. I'm not sure why. I think that was a misplay. He should have definitely played that first. Why did he not play that first? Yeah, that was a misplay. A minor one, but it was one. So we've got to find a way to remove this so that we can then bring our mucking about into play. And we can just drop the Orc boys with the knob. And this way we're going to clear this Neuraloid out, and then just no mucking about the big guy. You see about, you know, this is why the importance of using Grukk's ability, drawing in to make sure we're thinning our deck, to make sure that we're drawing into these removal tools. That's the thing that I see people do wrong with this deck. It's they try and play it like too much, almost like a tempo deck, and then they run out of resources and then you lose. Okay, so he drops the guard. So we're going to drop our own guard, Mr. Hardshell himself. And this time we get the adder's nails off as well. And of course, with the knob on board, Ardshell can attack, and we are laughing. So obviously we can put the pressure on. What does he do to try and come back? Has he got flank for that? I don't think he has. No. So we can just finish the game here, I think. Yeah, so we can just finish the game. We run out of flankers, and kaboom. So there we go. Victory. So there we have it, boys. Ripper Control Rockhouse version 3.0. Like I say, I do think there's lots of ways you can kind of change this deck if you're missing a few cards, but I genuinely believe this is the most powerful deck in the game right now. It is proving itself for me and others on the ladder, and it's incredibly versatile. It's a lot of fun to play because of that. There's lots of decisions. You always feel like you could have done something different to win. So yeah, give it a try. Please let me know what you think to the deck in the comments, and I hope you really like this video. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one, guys.